Hi everyone, and welcome to season 3 and episode 3 of Behind Your Eyes. Today, my guest is Kavy. Welcome, and would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Hi, Susan. Hi, everyone. So my name is Kavy, and I'm a lifestyle interventionist.
Mm.
So what I do is I help people to walk a journey of healing for their minds and therefore change their lifestyle, hence the intervention part. And yeah, it's fairly recent. So I started in 2020,
Mm.
and yeah, I've been enjoying it so far.
Awesome. Well, I always start with the same question. It's a sincere, how are you doing?
I am doing well, Susan, and everyone else. um, yes.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, it's been a crazy few years, and it affects us all, of course. Yeah, and good to hear that you are doing well. So you just mentioned you're a lifestyle interventionist, and I would love to know like how you decided, to go that route and be your own entrepreneur.
Okay, that's a very interesting story.
Yeah, I'd love to
So
hear.
what happened was from 2012, I
Mhm.
completed my psychology honors degree,
Mhm.
and then we had a bit of a financial struggle. So at that time, my dad was paying for our studies, my elder sister and I,
Mhm.
and we had a bit of a financial struggle, and I didn't go on to do masters,
Mhm.
but I was just like there was a passion in me that I'm gonna use my psychology degree just in a different way. So,
Mhm.
like, whenever I speak, it's all about, you get the fit in the box mentality. I'm like opposite to that. I don't like to fit in a box. It's
Mhm.
kind of like you don't want to be like everybody else, but
Yeah.
you feel like you've got something different to offer.
Mhm.
So a lot of it birthed out of that passion. And so I remember being in sales. It was like a temporary job.
Mhm.
And I was sitting, so you get like targets when you take a sales job. And I had 50 targets, I think, for the day. So every day you get 50 targets. And I remember sitting there because I had a backlog of maybe like 75 and that I had to reach. And
Yeah.
I just sat there and I was overwhelmed. And I sat at my computer and I just started crying. And I remember they sent someone to help me, like, kind of catch up with my backlog. But
Mhm.
after she had helped me and left, I ended up just sitting there at my computer, not being able to function, just feeling so overwhelmed and
Mhm.
so emotional. And that actually pushed me to start the lifestyle intervention of how many pupils in school experience that, how many people in the workplace experience
Mhm.
that, and you have to now get a job done, but at the same time deal with these overwhelming emotions
Yeah.
that you have. And that actually pushed me to start lifestyle intervention is I want to help people deal with that side of it so that
Mhm.
they can function more um, how do I say efficiently in
Mhm.
what they called to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like even now, it's after all the COVID and with all the stress that came with it, when you go back to your workplace, it's even more overwhelming than it was before.
Mm. That's so true. And there's not a lot of open, like, or not a lot of platforms where you can kind of, speak about it freely. And that's what I love about lifestyle intervention is you come as you are. Like it's a judgment-free, like accepting space where you come as you are, you explain what you're going through, and you receive tailor-made strategies
Mm.
specifically for you. And it's not asking you to do what someone else has done, but asking you to do something that you're comfortable with that'll work for you, that'll bring change.
Yeah. It's very like tailor-made specifically for you.
Yes.
Edition. Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds.
so I'm so sorry. I was gonna say, that's what I love about it is it's not one size fits all kind of
Mhm.
strategy. So it's not, Susan, you are this kind of person, but you need to do what works for me because then
Right.
it's not going to work for you. It has to be tailor-made to who you are as a person.
Yeah, and of course that makes total sense, but unfortunately, in especially in mental health care, it's not that progressed yet to where it's actually suited to you and your lifestyle and your struggles, but it's more like, okay, what we all go through, they have a certain image or picture of, okay, this is what you have, so this is what you should do to be like cured or healed. And it's not very uh like for me, when I struggled with my phobia, it was not really for me, but it was more like, what they think a phobia is. It's not like
Yes.
tailor-made for me, but for what they think should work.
Mm. So that's another thing I steer clear of labels,
Hmm.
especially like exactly what you said. It's like, okay, you fit this label, therefore you need this strategy. And
Yeah.
that's the amazing thing that I get to do is sit with the person. And
Mhm.
as much as it's your healing journey, it's my healing journey with you because we walk together. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a talk with someone about this yesterday because I'm a coach as well. And when I see someone, when I see like a light bulb go off when I say something, and they're like, you see them change their like opinion about themselves. It's like also a part of me heals with them.
Mm.
So I think that's one of the best parts of the job.
That's so true.
And you said that you have struggled with anxiety as well. Could you tell a bit or how that started and how you started to heal from that?
So, especially so with the lifestyle intervention, I call it a movement. So,
Hmm.
according to the worldly systems, it's a business, but I refer to it as a movement because I feel like the momentum in it is just it's unlimited. So, I refer to it as a movement. But for me, it's can you just remind me, sorry, Susan, what was the
You
question
said
again?
you struggled with anxiety as well, and I
Oh,
wondered
yes.
how that started and how you started also your healing journey from that.
So when I started the movement, it was a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear, because it comes with the risk of
Mhm.
like you doing this now, you taking a risk, you don't know what's on the other side, you don't know the outcome. There's
Mhm.
so many little voices, so many like negative voices in your own mind, as
Mhm.
well as from the outside world, especially
Yeah.
when it comes from people close to you or people in your family or friends that will bring about like you already got it in your mind the what ifs and then
Mm.
they come along and they're like, but what if it doesn't work out, what if you only get one client, what
Yeah.
if this, and then it starts to build onto your own anxiety and then it's like whoa, like you start thinking about like worst case scenarios, and that
Mm.
was it for me. And I think what helped me heal is I have a fear strategy that I actually try myself. So
Mm.
whatever I give clients to use, it's like I try it on myself first
Mhm.
because it should show you that, I can tailor make it for you, but it does actually work. So
Right.
it's like because it goes according to who I am as a person. So I'm a visual person. So
Mhm.
I would watch encouraging, like motivating videos when I'm feeling down or I need
Mhm.
that pick me up. And then I would write like sticky notes because I love color. So I put like sticky notes up, like you can do this
Mhm.
one day at a time, like things like just to encourage yourself. Because they say on your good days, you got to invest for your bad days.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
when you have your good days, you're going to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to put this up for when I'm going to have one of my bad days. And then I would do that. And I think that really helped me is also drowning out the voices. So at
Mm.
certain points in time, I would go off social media for like maybe a month, or I would focus just like quiet time, like self reflection of what am I actually going to do now? Like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm taking this step. What do I have in place kind of to keep me going? Like, what's
Mhm.
on my path? What's going to help me in this journey? And that's exactly what happened with me. I went from being so anxious to
Mhm.
taking one step at a time, but also having these reinforcements at every step. Yeah,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, because having anxiety and feeling already the need to heal, but it can be scary even if you want to heal from it. You think like, oh, it's going to be such a big journey. But sometimes, like you said, you just have to take it one step and one day at a time. And when you look back, it was just all these little steps that got to where you are now.
And it's like, so a 45-degree angle. I
Mhm.
like to use this example because the little angle part at the bottom is your step. But the area within the angle is the amount of influence it has. So, like you said, taking those little steps has a greater effect in your life. So it was like that for me, just taking the small steps, but having that bigger impact in my life.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be also a bit scary because you don't know what's at the top of that stair. You're like, am I gonna be healed? How am I gonna feel? It's scary because it's kind of the unknown when a lot of what you have known so far is being anxious or nervous or insecure. And so then it can actually be scary to recover because you're like, okay, this is known for me. So what what
Mm.
what am I going to do? So that can be scary as well, of course.
That's so true. And I think one of the things that also helps you is knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses. Like
Mhm.
I am not planner. I'm not somebody who plans for like 10 days in advance. I'm
Mhm.
somebody who, like I said, will take one step at a time. And even if you plan for the first step, that's
Yeah.
okay. That to me, that's a comfortable planning stage. And like
Yeah.
you said, like sometimes the comfort is good, and then sometimes you can tell when, okay, I'm comfortable here, but I can push it up, like I can take it up a notch, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like getting to know yourself and what you're comfortable with and see if you can stretch it just a bit to see how far you can go with that.
Mm. And
And
I
is
think
there anything that you still struggle with, like mentally today?
definitely the that trap of comparison is something that
Mm.
I constantly struggle with. So, like just as I am now, how lifestyle intervention is going, I'll be like, okay, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, we're all good, it's having progress. It's, I can see the growth, I can see the manifestations, I can see like, things are moving. And then I would go on social media and then you'd see like people are like, oh yeah, I started my business here, and like in this week, like I've already got 100 orders or something, and you're like, okay, like here I am, and there you are, and then it's that trap of comparison. And I heard like I've heard the saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm.
And it's so true because I would be happy by just looking at where lifestyle intervention has grown, where we headed, what's happening, the big strides that it's taking. And
Mhm.
then I would go and just happen to come across somebody else's journey and be like, wow, like they're there.
Yeah.
But it's something that I have to constantly remind myself is you can never compare an apple and an orange
Right.
because one is an apple and one is an
Mm.
orange. And then I have to remind myself, you can't compare yourself with the next person because
Yeah.
they had a different journey. They've got a different purpose. They've got a
Yeah.
different environment. It's like, how are you comparing the same?
Yeah. Yeah, but it can be tricky though because like you, I have the same. It's like you're building your coaching industry and you're like, oh, you're very proud of what you have done. And then you go on social media, you follow coaches and you see like, oh my gosh, they have so much followers or so much influence. And then you're like, okay, I'm not that far ahead yet. And then you struggle. But like you said, it's like, okay, you're going your own path, you're walking your own way. And it's like you shouldn't be comparing yourself, but be more like inspired by them.
Wow, that you actually touched on something that I was going to mention is so social media can be both like good and bad at times,
Yeah.
depending. So exactly what you said, some people inspire me. Like I look at them and I'm like, wow, it motivates me. I'm like, look at how they've grown, look at what they've achieved, and look at how they're progressing and stuff. And it would work as sort of a motivator for me.
Yeah.
And then you get the other times where you're like, oh, but then they there and I'm here and they're doing this and I'm doing this. And so it has pros and cons depending on my days. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you stay like mentally healthy? Do you have a certain like a routine for self-care?
So I love to journal.
Hmm.
I love to journal, and what I do is to help me, like to keep me mentally healthy, I would journal. If I find something positive or something encourages me throughout the day, I'll write it down. And then on my bad days, I go back and I look at it because it
Mm,
just reminds me of, like, you know, when you receive like such a good motivating, like maybe it's a video or a song or just somebody speaking something into your
mhm,
life. Like I love to keep track of that because you remember the emotion that was attached to it.
mhm.
So like you could just tell me something like, you got this, and like my emotions are like, yay, I'm motivated, I got this, it's like positive, I'm feeling like high, right? And then I write it down and then remember the emotion that was attached to it. And then on my bad days when like I'm struggling to even feel like I can put one foot in front of the other, I take a break from everything. So
Mhm.
like those will be the days where I'm not gonna invest my time into anything else except filling my cup.
Mm.
So it's like being filled so that you can go back out there. And
Yeah,
that's how I maintain that mental health, like good, yeah, good mental health in terms
yeah,
of like how I'm doing and stuff. But it
yeah,
also comes from a self-awareness, because if you recognize that, hey, I'm getting really frustrated, or I'm getting really anxious, or I'm getting really emotional, or I'm like, you know, you'll know because you're so aware. We're so aware of our bodies,
yeah.
even though we don't take the time to sit and be like, how am I doing today?
Mhm.
We're very aware as humans of how our emotional states are.
Yeah,
And then like you'll know, okay, I'm not doing okay. And that's when you retract and you're like, okay, let me invest back into myself first
mhm.
before I go back up.
Yeah. I always say every healing journey has to start with awareness
Mm.
because that's
Wow.
you have to get to know yourself, your triggers, what's going on inside of you before you can, recognize what's going on and create the awareness, and then you can start your healing.
That's so true, because especially like when you ask, how are you doing?
Right.
Sometimes people are like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it's like because we're so used to I'm fine, it's not really like how am I doing? Like sort of like a question of like, how are you really doing? So I
Yeah.
understand that's so powerful because you have to know how your body is really doing. How's your mind doing? How's your body doing? How's your spirit doing? In
Yeah.
order to actually answer that question of how are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah. Because like you said, it's quite a natural or quick response that we say, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm fine. But then also most people don't really want to know how you're doing. They say it just as a nicety, and but when you ask like how are you really doing, and then there's that the thing like, oh wait, you have to dig a bit deeper than that. So yeah, I always find that that triggers something in people.
Mm. And so I have three sisters.
Mm.
So that happens with us is, let's say I don't open up about my emotions, and then one of my sisters will come along and they'll notice like there's a change in how I am, and then they'll ask, "Are you okay?" And it's just that one question, and then you start crying, and then you're wondering like, where did this come from?
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Yeah, it's really powerful, actually. It's a really powerful question if you let it, enter you, I would like to say.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. So, and as you said, you've studied psychology, and I would like to know, is there something that, people in general need to know about mental health to break the stigma that's actually still around?
I think for me, like one of the things I noticed is, I think like in the workplace, in the schools, I think physical healing is
Mhm.
given a lot more emphasis than like mental health.
Right.
And I think that's one of the stigmas for me is that exactly what they say, when you're not doing well physically, you go to a doctor. But if you're
Right.
not doing well mentally, you kind of like withdraw because there's that stigma of, yeah, but if you go for like, mental health, like help for your mental health, you, it's like there's a negative connotation for some reason with mental health. And it's not necessarily the case because our behaviors are led by our mind. And
Hmm.
if our minds are not okay, it results in how we act, how our behaviors are being portrayed. So
Yeah.
I think for me, that's really powerful. That's another reason why I'm so passionate about mental health, is because it's not so overt, it's not so easily like pinpointed, but it's so powerful in how much influence it has in our lives.
Yeah.
So for me, that stigma, like that to me is why I love the field that I'm in. And I love the work that I do, because like you said before, when you see people's face light up, it's like, I was carrying something around for like so many years, and then like in one moment you see like just somebody look completely different.
Yeah.
But it's not a physical thing. It's like they've changed in like the aura that they have.
Yeah, exactly. And you just said, and that was actually my next question, is about mental health in school. Like, it's not addressed enough. It's more like solution based than like what is actually going on in someone's life. So what is a topic that you think should be taught at school?
So I had the privilege of voluntarily counseling in the
Mhm.
school.
Oh, brilliant.
It was one of the schools that I went to when I was in primary school,
Hmm.
and my sister teaches there. So I was like, okay, I want to volunteer my time. Like, I know they say when you're passionate about something, you do it even without getting paid. And I
Hmm.
was like, literally, I want to do this because I want to change lives of those students.
Yeah.
And so I volunteered at a school, and one of the learners actually came up to me and she's like, ma'am, you know what? I have these thoughts. And one of the things for me was suicide was a big thing, because the school had previously experienced a learner wanting to jump from the
Mm.
corridors. So I think for me, it was more of like suicide is a big thing in the schools, because when you take a step like that, or even think about taking a step like that, it's the question of how much are you carrying to now focus on this kind of outlets.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think for me, it's more the thing of the kids need to know. So one of the things I did before I started counseling is I did a who can help form, and I
Mhm.
went to every classroom and I'm like, I need you guys to know this. So if you are unable to speak to people, you can write a letter about what's going on. Because not everyone is so open about what
Right.
they're dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I told the students, I'm like, you can write a letter and give it to somebody that you trust who can
Mhm.
help you. It's a teacher or the principal, or somebody in the school that you trust. Even if you tell your friend and your friend tells the teacher, it's
Right.
still that they have that help and they know that it's available. And then I told them, know who your school counselor is, so
Mhm.
that when you're dealing with a problem, you can come ask them, ma'am, I really need to speak to you, I really need counseling, there's things I'm struggling. And I would give them a form to go home, and because they'd have to get their parents' consent to have counseling done for
Right.
them. And I would sit with them and then just speak to them. But I think suicide was a big thing in the school, because the kids feel like I'm there to learn, full
Yeah.
stop. And it's like whatever I'm dealing with, I leave it at home, full stop. And
Right.
it's not the case, because whatever you're dealing with, you bring it into every area you step into. So
Exactly.
for me, it was heartbreaking to see that, prior to me being there, like you always wonder what were they doing, like the kids, what were the kids doing to have that outlet?
Yeah.
Were they like, feeling like they can't turn to anybody? So what were they using as a coping mechanism? And
Hmm.
I think for me, suicide was a big one, and I'd like to see that being addressed in the schools. Of if kids need help, they need an avenue to receive the help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so essential because kids think, okay, like you said, we're at school, so we have to focus on, maths and geography,
Mm.
English studies, and so on. But they tend to forget, obviously, because they're kids, that whatever goes on in their life at home or with their parents, with their family, etc., all the struggles they may have there, they bring that with them to the classroom, of course. And
Mm.
also, teachers don't always know how to handle that, or they think a child is just being disobedient or
Mm.
rude, or when they have a lot of struggles going on at home, but they don't know how to release those.
And that's so amazing that you just mentioned that. I was going to say one of the kids that I was counseling, his parents were getting a divorce at the time when he was in school, and it showed up in how his level of work was. And like you said, the teachers are thinking to themselves like, why aren't you doing your work? Why aren't you listening? Why aren't you, completing the stuff? Why aren't you looking at the work that's clearly on the board?
Right.
And why aren't you doing it? And it's a valid question because as a teacher, like you there to do your job, you there to make sure that they're getting the necessary tools that they need and the information that they need for life. And then it's sad because at the same time, I feel the teachers are also not equipped. Because like I'm talking from my sister's point of view, she shares with me the kind of admin that goes into teaching. And at some stages, they have the admin, they try to focus on the kids, they try to help them. And at the same time, what do you do with a kid that's now acting out and you don't know how to help them?
Yeah.
So that was also like big for me is, we need to equip them to also be able to help the kids to identify, is this a deeper issue? Is this something that, is it like surface level strategies that they need, or is it something deeper?
Yeah, exactly. They need to, like you said, be equipped to recognize, okay, when is the child just being, obedient or not wanting to learn, not interested in school, or when is it, deeper issues and there's something more going on, and to regulate their emotions in a proper and healthy way. And so there's just a lot that what teachers, I mean, I love teachers, of course. That's one of the hardest jobs in the world. So I respect them so much. But yeah, it's I think it's essential that they also learn, like you said, to recognize when there's something deeper going on.
I also like I know a lot of people say, oh yes, teachers get a lot of holidays and they get to finish early and things like that. But I've seen the other side of it. I've been in the schools, I've seen how much of effort they put in, I see how much work they put in, I see how passionate they are. But like we said, seeing the light in the kids' faces when they understand the work.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a hard job. So I truly respect them. But it's yeah, I hope that in hopefully the near future, of course, that there's more awareness created around the mental health issues that kids are dealing with, especially now after COVID. You see a lot of kids that are struggling because they had to be homeschooled and now they have to be back in school, and it's a lot that's coming at them. So yeah, I hope that especially in schools, that the mental health awareness starts to grow more and more. Yeah. Well, my other question is, what are you most proud of?
Oh, that's an interesting one because you don't really sit down and think about this.
Yeah.
I think I'm most well pleased with my resilience, if I could say, because I think like through my life, I've taken a lot of hits against the lifestyle intervention movement, and I think my resilience is something that I'm so grateful for
Yeah.
because it's like the saying of being knocked down, but then you get back up again. And I think if I didn't keep getting back up again, I wouldn't be here today and I wouldn't be able to do the things I do and help the people that I help.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things I'm really grateful for and has really impacted my life. And yeah, it's made me the person that I am. I can honestly look back at the beginning of lifestyle intervention and say this is two different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you could talk to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that, so in the hard times, because we always, in life, you're going to face those hard times. I would tell her that in those hard times, just remember that it's okay to, how do I say it? It's okay to be in your process. Like, process is one of the biggest things for me is I know, especially even in the healing journey, everybody's got their own process. And as much as I would encourage one of my clients to be in your process and be present in your process and just take in your process. I would say the same thing to myself is you're going to have the hard days, but go through the process, see what's on the other side of that step. Yes, you're going to be fearful if it's good or bad, but sometimes your circumstances force you, like how I said, me being in the sales job, those circumstances pushed me to step out and to take that risk. And I think the same thing like now is I would tell younger me that as much as the process is messy, like stepping through it, it doesn't last forever. That's one of the things I'd like to say. It doesn't last forever. It may look like it will, but it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes in healing, like the process itself can be hard. Well, not really enjoy, but to it's sometimes hard because you take 2 steps forward and like 3 steps back sometimes, not just one. And you're like, oh gosh, is this ever going to be better, feel better? And it can be tough and it can be quite a struggle, but in the end, you have to savor the good and the bad days because there are lessons in everything.
That's so true. And I think for me, I didn't mention it before, but now that you're speaking, it just came to my mind is when you hear other people's success stories, it's so encouraging to me because exactly what you said, like you're gonna have your good days, you're gonna have your bad days, but it's not going to last forever. And then you listen to these people that are like, oh, I was here. And then I had a really bad patch in the middle. And then I came here. Like, and that's why I love movies. When I watch a movie, it's like I'll know the beginning and I'll know what the ending is going to be. But I love to watch the middle. And that middle part reminds me of people's processes. It's like it starts off bad. In the middle is like the messy but the good part because that's where you grow. And then the end part is like your victory. It's like
Yeah,
you getting to the other side. Yeah.
yeah. The messy middle part is always the most interesting, right?
That's so true.
Yeah.
And they always say like you'll look back on the journey and be like, oh, wow, I'm so glad I went through that. And that gives you hope. It's like, okay, there's gonna be a day when I'm gonna look back at it and be like, oh, so that's where I got that trait. That's where I got that good coping mechanism. That's where I got that, that friend or like, that person in my life that anchored me kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a lot to look back on because, like I said, I struggled also with a phobia that lasted for years. And when you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh, it's hard, and yeah, you take a few steps forward and then another back, and yeah, that's the messy part. But that's definitely the part where you learn the most about yourself. Because when are you at your happiest?
Oh, so I'm at my happiest when so I listen to songs as well. And what I love about it is the wording. Like if you hear like a really good song that just has such powerful words in it, it
Mm-hmm.
actually changes the atmosphere like in your space.
Mm-hmm.
That I found that for me. So I'm at my happiest if I'm playing like, a positive song or a song that just speaks to the situation that I'm going through.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. It was wonderful to talk to you.
Oh, yes, you too. I'm so sorry about the stops and starts.
It's okay. We all have an unstable Wi-Fi sometimes. So it's a joy to
And
talk to
you'll
you.
find it's at the most strangest times when you need it to behave that it starts going all rebel.
It's true. Well.